today is January 12th, 12:37, the second full week of the new year. And I think I'm about to start, I know I'm about to start, my most anticipated series of the year. Hi friends and readers, I am super excited to be back with a reading vlog this week. I will be honest, I've been in what feels like a reading slump. Last year was the first year I read consistently January through December, finished the year with 73 books. Working full-time, Monday through Friday, 40 hours a week, a hybrid schedule. I've been trying to read 2 books a week for the channel and just to keep me at peace doing something that I like to do / love to do. It's January 12th, which means I could have read up to 4 books already this month, and I have not. But I'm hoping and praying that this series that I'm picking up today is what is going to reignite and help me move beyond a little bit of a slump. This is a series that I always told myself I would pick up during the winter time. Maybe would have picked it up in February, but I know that I need it now. With all that being said, I don't want to overestimate or maybe overhype the series and then it falls short. However, I'm really not worried about that. I know 3 out of 3 for this author, almost 3 out of 3 5 stars. It can't do me wrong. It's currently my lunchtime. I have about 20 minutes left. So we are going to start the first book in the series. I plan on reading the first 2 out of 3 books in this series. I'm going to talk to you later once I've started and give you an update on what we're reading. Alright, it is a whole day later, 12:36 on Tuesday, January 13th. And yesterday, just barely, I started Beartown by Fredrik Backman. This week, I hope to read books 1 and 2 because the Beartown series is a total of 3 books. First, we have Beartown, and then we have Us Against You and The Winners. And I was so happily gifted this book paperback series, all 3 books, by a dear friend of mine for Christmas. And I just knew, I was like, I've got to read it within a month or 2 because I have just been anticipating this series for forever. It's definitely been on my radar for 2 years. Back when I read A Man Called Uva in 2024. I think it was early 2024. So I've really been anticipating reading Beartown. I have read by Fredrik Backman now A Man Called Uva, Anxious People, and My Friends. My Friends and Anxious People were a 5-star for me, and A Man Called Uva was probably a 4.5 star. I want to watch the adaptation of A Man Called Uva with Tom Hanks. I haven't watched it. It is on my radar. If you know anything about that story, was listening to it a good bit on audio at that time while cleaning for my elderly neighbor's house, crying. Not a good idea. My Friends, cried. Anxious People, I don't think I cried, but still very emotional. What I have loved about Fredrik Backman is, 1, I thought I was a romance reader. And then I picked up Fredrik Backman and I thought, okay, so maybe I like romance, but not as much as I am liking literary fiction, contemporary fiction, whatever you're calling it, and just the connection that Fredrik Backman can make you feel to the characters in his stories. He writes just such simple sentences that make you think, yes, that's a human. I've experienced that in real life. I could walk past this person tomorrow and know exactly who they are because of how Fredrik Backman writes these characters. And does it in a funny way too. Some of his stories are heavy in grief, heavy in trauma, heavy in, hey, real life experiences, but they're also funny and there's this comedic relief to them sometimes. All that to say, I'm 3 books down with Fredrik Backman and can safely say he is a favorite author of mine, and I have heard amazing, incredible things about the Beartown series. Something even funnier about this is I'm pretty sure at least 1 to 2 people in this world who have heard me talk about wanting to read this. I have told that it is based off the Bear TV show. I don't know why, I don't know when, and I don't know how I got that assumption in my head that the Bear TV show, which yes, is about cooking, culinary, is about Beartown. That is wrong. That is incorrect. If you are one of those two people in my life that I told that, so sorry. You probably don't remember, but I hope you don't remember. As I get into book number 1 this week, I'm really just barely scratching the surface on chapter 6. I read a little bit last night and a little bit this morning, but I plan to do a lot of damage today actually. And then for the rest of the week, I also just want to go ahead and jump straight into the second one, Us Against You. And I think I'm going to save the winners for next week to do a 24-hour reading vlog. So back to back, I want to read all 3 books. If you have read Fredrik Backman and you know of another author out there that writes similar or is just in the same genre and you think I'd like, please let me know because I'm dying to feel like I feel with Fredrik Backman. Opening up this book, I realized that while I've read 3 going on 4 books by this author, there's still a good bit out there that I haven't read. Also by Fredrik Backman. Right here we have My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry, Britt Marie Was Here, The Deal of a Lifetime, and Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer. If you've read any of those, let me know if I should pick one or all of them up and in what order you would. And the last thing I'll say before I keep reading and stop yapping at you is I'm glad I got a paperback version. I was telling you that I've sort of been coming out of a book slump, and I think reading this paperback is going to be nice for me to just fly through the story and really get invested in all 3 paperbacks. All I knew about Beartown coming in is that it was based in a snowy, wintry landscape about a small town and ice hockey being really big in the small town. And really, that's where we're at currently, only 6 chapters into the story. This is a very tiny community and a very dense forest where they are essentially failing to keep people in the community. And they are trying to rally behind their ice hockey team to bring people back, to bring jobs, to bring tourism, to bring money so this community can stay alive. And they think that ice hockey is where they can do that. And tomorrow in the story, the junior ice hockey team is going to compete in the semifinals. So right now we are meeting all of these different humans and characters that are part of this small town story. We're meeting the general manager of the ice hockey team, some of the boys that are on the ice hockey team, their families, their kids, their sisters, their brothers. And it's a very people watching experience as you go to learn why they do what they do and what's going to happen at the semi-final game tomorrow. And we will keep reading. That's really all I know, and I think that's pretty much what you learn on the back besides one other big spoiler, and I'm not going to tell you. So I'm going to keep reading and update you once I've got a little bit more into the story. Yeah. Okay, it is Wednesday, about 6:29 p.m. I went to in-person work today, so I got to listen to a little bit of Beartown on my way home today, and then also read a good bit last night before bed on my lunch break today at work. And we have made it pretty far into the book actually since I last talked to you, and things have changed drastically. We are on page 293, which is chapter 38, and we only have about this much left, and I plan to sit down and finish this tonight just to sort of see where the story goes. From the very beginning, the first page of this book, chapter 1, there is a event that is crazy that happens, and there's no clarity. It's very vague, it's very traumatic sounding, and we know no context. And then that's the first page. The rest of this is about this small town, meeting all of the families and the different characters who come to play in this ice hockey team for the juniors, and their families and their siblings and their sisters, and we forget all about that very first chapter. And here we are, and I don't know if we're ever gonna find out who and why of that first chapter is happening, and I'm a little worried it's not going to be revealed until book 2 or 3, but I don't know, maybe it'll be revealed at the end of this. Who knows? I do have some thoughts so far into the book. It is not feeling like a 4 or a 5 star for me, which I've told you, this feels like my most anticipated read series of the year, and I'm hoping that if I keep giving it a chance with books 2 and 3, maybe I'll start to feel differently once you sort of find yourself in these families. I wrote down some notes on this. There is one character in here that you almost are built up to want to like and to want to root for towards the beginning of the story, and then how the story progresses and where we're approaching now, absolutely hate them. Can't see them having a redeemable character arc, and so I just don't know how I'm gonna feel if they continue to be in the story. Now, one thing is that this is a boys ice hockey team and a lot of dads and fans in the crowd rooting for this team and the locker room talk, and I'm just not a fan. Clearly, girls girl here. All of the boy talk, locker room talk, how grown men are acting in the stands at these games and things that they're saying and the coaches and what they're saying. I don't know, I just don't enjoy it. Maybe it's a sign of this book coming out in 2017, or maybe we're going to come back to that as that's wrong, they shouldn't be acting that way, what they're saying is not excusable. But right now we haven't really did that. It's kind of just the motto of men being men, and it just feels not like my cup of tea. I don't know that I've ever read a book that felt as boy catered as this one. Anyways, there are some strong and powerful women in here, and there are also some very strong and powerful topics in here. There are a ton of things and topics that could be triggering. I do think this is one of those books where you might want to look at some warnings before you go into it. A lot of heavy things discussed, and that kind of just brings the, I don't want to say morale down while reading it, but it's just a heavy thing to read about. I think that there are some strong implications of what's being written, and I think it's good writing, and I love everything else I've read by Fredrik Backman. It's just, as it stands, not my favorite at the moment. But also, it is a series, so you don't know how much is going to change in this much, because I think a lot's going to change at the end of here, and then moving forward, maybe all of these things will be redeemed, and that's the whole point. So we will see. I'm going to come back on Thursday, which is tomorrow, with my final updates on Beartown, and then get started with the next one, I believe, Us Against You. Talk to you then. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I got home from work not that long ago. I listened to a good bit of Beartown once again this morning on my way to work. It's like a 50-minute to an hour drive in the mornings. So at 2 times speed, I was making some damage. And for the first time since I last updated you, I genuinely felt the emotion of the last all these pages hit me this morning on the way to work. And there were multiple times where I started to cry a little, and then my cats are playing. And then I had to bring the tears back in because I have mascara on and I was about to go to work. I'm laughing, but this book is so heavy. I'm gonna rate Beartown a 4-star, which ended up being better than I was thinking this was headed. I do realize that Fredrik Backman, like I've said, a favorite author. This is so different than the rest of the books that I've read by Fredrik Backman, and I really don't know the publishing order where the Beartown series came out amongst the other 3 books that I've read, but it's so heavy. There's so many topics in here that are heavy, and they are uncomfortable to read. And in the beginning, I was just feeling how uncomfortable I was, and a little bit of wanting to be optimistic that towns like this with people acting like this don't exist, but that's very naive of me to say and not realistic. This was a little too realistic in how men treat women, how society treats women, and how the culture around men's sports in small towns can just ruin people's lives, essentially. And so I was just uncomfortable by that. But the message and the meaning and the power behind the exceptions, the characters who are the exceptions to this town, who stand up when they have everything to lose for it, make this book a 4-star for me. And 4-star is still incredible, making all the books I've read by Fredrik Backman a 4-star and up so far. I'm going to say that you've definitely got to pick this up when you're ready for it. This is not a very light-hearted story at all, and so gotta be in a mood to read something like this. And I wasn't necessarily not in the mood. I guess I just wasn't anticipating that this was what the story was about. I really knew nothing about it, and now I'm curious of where we're going to go in the next 2 stories and hope that this town can recover. One thing I really enjoyed about this first story is all the different perspectives of all the different people that we see in Beartown, in this small town, and how some of them have such varying and on the opposite end of the spectrum thoughts, opinions, values, cultures, and yet they all live in this town and have some point of connection, some good, some bad. And I do appreciate how we sort of circle back to all these different perspectives and points of views towards the end of the story. It almost felt like this could have just ended and we never see Beartown again. And so when I finished this and I jumped right into the second book, Us Against You, I read the back of it because I was like, is this gonna pick up where it left off with all of these people? We sort of tied a little bit of a bow on them at the end of this story. And it does. I am already starting Us Against You. I'm on page 72 actually, which is chapter 10. And so far in Us Against You, we picked up with some of the characters that we know from Beartown, and we're doing a little bit of a summary spill of things that happened and reiterating some ideas and big themes and what struggles this town are still facing, even though what they thought was the problem has been disseminated, and we are continuing on with all of their stories. I have no clue where this is going to go and how we are going to follow ice hockey, if we are still going to follow ice hockey, or if this is going to transition into more of just their lives. But I'm excited to see. I hope things are feeling better for the people that I liked and want to see thrive in this book who didn't get the chance to do so in this book, and maybe the morale will be better. But all of the things that happen in Beartown, it's just like unimaginable to think that that trauma is going to leave any of these people to allow them to live a better life. I hope it does, but it's hard to see that moving forward, and that's why I've got to read the book. This says a lyrical look at how a community heals, how families recover, and how individuals grow. And I think that's really what I need book 2 to be, just to kind of relieve some of the heaviness that we faced. Wow, I just did not see this going this way. I'm excited to keep reading though. It's Thursday evening. I'm gonna go eat dinner, feed the cats, and catch up with you tomorrow to see how things move along with Us Against You, book number 2. So, a few things have happened since I last talked to you. I got bangs, and it is now Sunday. I, as you probably just saw, finished Us Against You by Fredrik Backman and absolutely cried my eyes out. I am probably not going to be able to stop messing with these, so sorry in advance. I've got to train them and get them how I want them since they're so fresh and new, but we're gonna leave them alone. We're gonna forget about that. Us Against You, and also in this video, Beartown, books 1 and 2 in the Beartown trilogy. I am saving book number 3 for a video that's next week, but I'm literally gonna start today. How much can I read in 24 hours? So check that out if you want to see how I feel about the conclusion of this series. You've already heard my thoughts about Beartown and now Us Against You. One thing that I think I really liked about this story that I probably would have never liked in any other story, instead of waiting for the chapter to end to move perspectives of all the people in Beartown, we move perspectives in the middle of chapters multiple times. So you'll be reading about Benji in one chapter, and then the very next paragraph you're reading about Kira, and so forth and so on with all the different characters. And I really like that because you keep transitioning to hear about their lives and to hear about their current struggles, and then literally in the next paragraph you go back to someone where you just left off on a crazy happenstance, and now you're back in it and you're like, oh my god, how did I forget about that? But it works so well in this story because you're just people watching, and these characters feel so real. And at the same time, I'm thinking a lot of the characters in Beartown and Us Against You, they are so young, anywhere from 5 years old to 12 years old, to a large majority of them being 16, 17, and then their parents in their 30s and their 40s, and then their parents' idols who are in their 50s and 60s and 70s. You are just seeing all walks of life, and I do think that that Us Against You is definitely the town healing from Beartown to this story. I had such a good time despite it still being very heavy. Characters in here going through terrible things that you don't think that 16-year-olds have to go through, or you don't hear about 16-year-olds going through it that often. But in a small town like this where people keep traditions and they isolate those who don't keep those same traditions, and you get to read about it. Now, I can only imagine how I'm going to feel about the winners. This is a book about tragedy and this is a book about healing. So what's this going to be about? Hopefully winning. It's a hefty book, so I don't even know what's gonna happen. Finish off by saying that we are going to rate Beartown a 4-star, as I mentioned. I'm gonna give Us Against You a 4.5. I cried my eyes out the last 50 pages or so. There was just some things towards the beginning that didn't give it that 5-star feeling, but I do have a feeling about what this is gonna be. If you're a people watcher, I think this is for you. If I recommended this series to someone, it would come with some warnings, and maybe you need to be in a certain mood to pick up a series like this. That's all. I'm going to go mentally prepare myself to pick up this guy later on tonight. Bye for now.